the draft resolution for a ceasefire in Gaza, presented to you more than 3 months ago by a coalition of activists and organizations, embodies the very heart of democracy.
We want to live in a free, democratic society where people are free to stand up and voice their opposition to the murder, to the genocide of innocent men, women, and children.
Hello, my name is Stanley Heller. Welcome to the Struggle Video News. Last week, we showed the words in Mohammed Shahada's tweets about a Palestinian prisoner who in Gaza was run over by an Israeli tank. Shahada works for the Euromed Monitor. Euromed Monitor has published an article with this headline: "Dozens of people have been run over by tanks." Dozens. The article talks about an incident that took place on January 23rd when an Israeli tank ran over members of the Ghanam family while they were sleeping in a shelter caravan in the Taiba Towers area of Khan Yunis. Our Middle East Crisis Committee is calling for protests against these gruesome crimes. We'll be holding one in Danbury, Connecticut on Saturday, March 16th. March 16th is a meaningful date. On that day in 2003, an American was run over. Rachel Corrie of Washington State was run over and killed by an Israeli bulldozer in Rafah. Join us on the 16th, or if you're not in Connecticut, plan your own rally. We'll be exposing Congresswoman Hayes and Senators Murphy and Blumenthal. None of them, at this point, have said a word about these horrors. When people condemn the genocide in Gaza, those influenced by Zionist talking points reply, well, what about the hostages? Okay, fair question. Let's talk about the hostages. All the hostages. Hamas and other Palestinians took some 250 Israelis and others on October 7th. Some of those taken were active duty soldiers, so they could be considered POWs, but let's not quibble. Right now, there are 130 Israelis in Gaza. In the modern rules of war, taking civilian hostages is considered a crime. But what about the Palestinians Israel has taken? The Israeli group HaMochad Center for the Defense of the Individual follows what happens to Palestinian prisoners, officially called security prisoners. It uses official Israeli prison statistics. You can see from their chart that even in the weeks after October 7, there were under 5,000 prisoners, specifically 4,700. Not much different than from a year earlier. But as of this March, there's over 9,000 prisoners. 9,077. Almost all from the West Bank. We're talking about over 4,000 new prisoners taken by Israeli raids in the West Bank, not Gaza. What about those 4,000? Aren't they hostages? And what about the reported ill treatment of these people? The City Council of New Haven is called the Board of Alders. Back in early December, a ceasefire resolution was presented to the council, but the council has been sitting on it ever since. Taisha Walker-Myers, its president, is the main person holding it up, but there's no information that any of the other alders were publicly supporting the resolution or calling for a way to work around her. Unlike in Bridgeport and many other cities, the public in New Haven doesn't have the right to speak to the council before the council starts its business. So after months of effort, people in New Haven became fed up and held their own people's hearing on the steps of City Hall. It went on for 3 hours. We'll have some of the testimony.
Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free! From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free! From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free! From the river to the sea.
Hello everyone, I'm Harmony. I'm one of the student reps on the Board of Education and an organizer in New Haven. Like Francesca said, a couple reminders. This is not an official public hearing, but we will be acting as if it were. Please keep your testimony to 3 minutes. Hate speech will not be tolerated. And if you still want to sign up to give your testimony, please approach Jesse over here.
Hi! My name is Frida, and I live in New Haven, Ward 17. I work in New Haven as a nurse, I attend Yale, and I'm part of New Haven Healthcare Workers for Palestine. I'm very happy to be here today to speak with y'all because my alder, Sal Punzo, has made it clear that he does not care what I have to say.
Shame!
None of the alders do. They do not exist to represent me or listen to me. The Board of Alders exists to serve the interests of Yale, the landlords, the business owners, and the rest of the ruling class in New Haven.
That's right.
Quite frankly, I feel fine that I'm not afforded the opportunity to speak to them directly, because anyone who holds power and allows the continuation of the houselessness crisis, who supports the over-policing of New Haven residents, who won't do everything in their ability to end the ongoing genocide while they represent a city that gives $1.8 million per year to the Israeli military, is not someone who cares about anything I have to say. If we cannot force the Board of Alders to face the responsibility they hold, we can at least face it ourselves. It is clear now that elected officials, international courts of justice, the United Nations, and arguments backed by colonial discourses of human rights will not end this genocide. The responsibility falls upon us and our movements. I am here today because I only support the call for a ceasefire alongside the call to lift the blockade on Gaza. To release all political prisoners imprisoned in Israel. To end all occupation of Palestinian land and to end all financial support of Zionism from Western governments. I urge everybody to use whatever means are available to them to act right now. Participate in the global boycott, divest, and sanctions movement. Stop the flow of cargo and arms from Connecticut to Israel. Bring your demands into your union, your workplace, your classroom, your neighborhood, and act on the calls for solidarity from workers in Palestine.
It is a failing of leadership to not take a moral stance on this issue, while so many of your constituents are making sacrifices to speak up. People like me and the others at this hearing have faced harassment campaigns and death threats, lost jobs and opportunities, and pushed ourselves to the limits of our physical, financial, mental, and emotional well-being. These are people who live, work, volunteer, run businesses, shop, make art, study, host community spaces, raise children, and make New Haven a great place to live. We have been holding the tens of thousands of Palestinian martyrs in our hearts for months now. It is past time for city leadership to echo our call for a ceasefire. Finally, as a Jewish person with so much love and adoration for my faith and my community, I am begging my representatives here to recognize those of us who refuse to let this massacre continue in our name. I am represented by you, not by a foreign government or other institutions. It is also a privilege and a responsibility to remind you that you also represent countless Palestinian, Muslim, and Arab American community members directly impacted by the siege on Gaza.
I stand before you today not just as a resident of New Haven and not just as a law student at Yale University, but as a Palestinian
who has witnessed and experienced the brutality of the conflict firsthand. As a Palestinian who grew up in the shadow of this violation of human rights. As a Palestinian who lived through the Second Intifada and the 2006 Israel-Lebanon war and the tensions over Gaza since 2007 and the May 2021 Israel's violence against Palestinians. And as a Palestinian who is now witnessing the genocide in Gaza, exceptional in Israel, a tragedy that tears families apart and shatters the dreams of generations. I stand before you today as a believer in justice. As a resident of New Haven and a law student, I have come to deeply value the principles of democracy, of justice, and the rule of law. These principles are not just abstract. They are intended to be the foundation upon which our society is built and upon which our society stands. The draft resolution for a ceasefire in Gaza, presented to you more than 3 months ago by a coalition of activists and organizations, embodies the very heart of democracy, a call to action rooted in the collective will of the people, a proof to our shared commitment to peace and to human rights. And yet, despite the urgency of the situation and the overwhelming support from this community, the resolution remained blocked. The resolution remained ignored. As a law student, I have been taught to believe in the power of the legal system to bring positive change, to uphold the rights and dignity of all individuals, regardless of their background and regardless of their circumstances. The people of Gaza are not just numbers. They are not just headlines. They are human beings with hopes, dreams, and aspirations for a better future.
At the end of that evening, it was announced that the New Haven Board of Alders had decided to refer the matter of the ceasefire resolution to a committee of the whole, and that the public would be able to make remarks before that meeting. But the special meeting is not scheduled until May 1st. What a joke. How contemptible. This news was so terrible it even made corporate news. After trying for 10 years, modern medicine let a Palestinian family have twins. And then the Israelis bombed the home in Rafah and killed the twins and 20 others. Now, from a press conference in front of a Hartford Superior Court, a press conference to defend Hicham Talal, who was arrested and charged with a hate crime after the police claimed he had put red paint on a Webster Bank building in West Hartford. The bank, according to protesters, had a connection to Elbit, Israel's biggest weapons maker.
Good morning. My name is John Fussell. I'm a retired labor lawyer from West Hartford, Connecticut. We are gathered here this morning in support of Hicham Talal. Hisham is a 24-year-old Moroccan-American. He works in construction. He goes to school full-time and hopes to become a doctor. Hisham has been charged with an act of vandalism in connection with a demonstration in West Hartford on January 21st. Hundreds of people attended that demonstration to protest Israel's genocidal war on Gaza and U.S. complicity in that war. No arrests were made at the demonstration or immediately thereafter. 5 weeks following the West Hartford demonstration, the police informed Hisham of a warrant for his arrest. Hisham proclaimed his innocence and turned himself in to the West Hartford Police Department. Among the hundreds of people attending the demonstration in West Hartford, Hisham is the only one to be arrested. There is no reliable evidence that has been provided to link Hisham to any misconduct or any crime. We are here because Hisham is innocent.
he's innocent of the charges against him. We are also here because of this baseless arrest attempts to chill the growing Palestinian rights movement. Millions of people have been marching in cities and towns throughout our nation and the world, demonstrating and demanding to stop the killing. This Palestinian freedom and justice movement demands an immediate ceasefire of Israel's war on Gaza, immediate and sufficient humanitarian aid for the starving people of Gaza, an end to U.S. military aid to Israel and U.S. complicity in support of Israel's war, an end to Israel's illegal siege on Gaza and illegal occupation of the Palestinian West Bank. The use by the state of hate crime charges against Hisham suggests an improper political motivation that immorally conflates legitimate criticism of Israel's war with anti-Semitism.
My name is Leah Shian, and I'm speaking today on behalf of the Connecticut Palestine Solidarity Coalition as a member of our steering committee. We are a coalition of 20 organizations across the state that represent a wide diversity of Connecticut residents of many religious, ethnic, and political backgrounds. We are united in our commitment to Palestinian liberation. The coalition stands in firm support of our community member Hicham Talal, who is facing baseless hate crime charges for simply speaking up on behalf of the Palestinian people. The police in the state of Connecticut have failed to provide any evidence that links Hisham to a hate crime. I know Hicham Talal to be a generous and kind member of our community. He works in construction while also attending school full-time. He is motivated in this hard work by his dream to become a doctor and to serve our community by providing health care and healing to those in need. At 24, he is young and filled with the potential to contribute to our society in profound ways. Right now, as Hisham is targeted for his support of Palestine, that potential, that future of generosity and hard work, of service to our community is at risk.
Next, call on Sarah White of the Hartford Jewish Organizing Coalition and Jewish Voice for Peace.
My name is Sarah White, and I'm a member of Jewish Voice for Peace of New Haven and the Hartford Jewish Organizing Collective. I'm here today in solidarity with Hicham Talal, in solidarity with the movement for Palestinian freedom, to say, drop the charges against Hisham and stop the repression of our movement. Hisham is innocent, and the police have provided no evidence linking him to a hate crime. What these charges are really about is the West Hartford Police and the state of Connecticut trying to silence and discredit our growing peaceful movement to stop the U.S.-backed genocide in Gaza.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Omar Abd Gad, the president of the Islamic Association of Central Connecticut, and in the meantime the president of the Arabic community in the area of New Britain. The message we wanted to send as a Muslim to our youth and to Hisham: we believe you innocent, and we believe Israel is committing a genocide. The thing is, we don't believe it's what's happening to him. Hisham is from Africa. I'm from Africa. We flee the third world countries because of the politically motivated injustice. And when we appear in the United States defending Gaza, defending the kids of Gaza, and talking about the case and being the voice for the people of Gaza and Palestine, it turned out to be there is a politically motivated hate crime against Hisham.
Charge of a hate crime against anyone for this kind of offense is outrageous. As I understand it, the charge has something to do with
a paint-like substance thrown against a bank window, the Webster Bank, a bank that has something to do with a hedge fund that invests in Elbit, this Israeli defense company. There are very good reasons that someone might dislike Elbit that have nothing to do with religion or prejudice against Jews.
Good morning. My name is Corinne Prescott. I'm with Power Up Connecticut. I stand here today, a black, queer, disabled woman who stands with Hisham. I stand here today as a real victim of a hate crime. I stand here today with a heart beating, with a soul, with eyes and ears, with nose, with mouth, who can see, who can feel, who can understand what real, true hate is. A building cannot. The building cannot come here today and say the pain that it felt when the paint went on the wall. The building cannot come here today and say that it went home and cried to its children after being embarrassed by having paint thrown on them. But I, as a black woman, can stand here today and say, I know what it's like to have spit flung in my face. That is a hate crime. What the state is doing, what West Hartford PD is doing, is outrageous. And it is an attack, a blatant attack against not only Hisham, who is a man of color, but against the Palestine solidarity movement.
In the name of God, most gracious, most compassionate, we stand here today with a member of our Muslim community, Hicham Talal, to affirm his innocence, to affirm that he has done the most American of things, to dissent and protest against the tyrannical, unjust, illegal actions of our government and their international proxies. We should not be the ones rallying for him. Everyone in this state should be rallying for him, because I'm sure I speak for everyone in this state who says we want to live in a free, democratic society where people are free to stand up and voice their opposition to the murder, to the genocide of innocent men, women, and children, journalists, doctors, nurses, aid workers, intentionally targeted. That's who should be on trial, and all charges against this young man, Hisham Talal, should be immediately dropped. Thank you.
Some will say, well, this is obviously not a hate crime. The authorities just lodged the charge to scare protesters. And maybe the charge will eventually be dropped. But consider, Hisham Talal had to post $50,000 in bail. $50,000. If he went to a bail bondsman to get that amount of money, he would be charged $5,000. Money he would never get back, whether guilty or innocent, or even if the charge never came to a court trial. That's an enormous amount of money for someone throwing paint at a window. I would point out that in the case of Connecticut trooper Brian North, his bail was also $50,000. But he's not charged with throwing paint. He's charged with manslaughter, shooting to death Mubarak Soulemane. The trial of Connecticut State Trooper Brian North began on March 4th in Milford, Connecticut. These are members of the Soulemane family who attended the trial. Trooper North was charged with shooting into a car driven by Mubarak Soulemane. The 19-year-old was suspected of carjacking and had driven erratically and at a very high speed on I-95 highway. Yet once he got off the highway in West Haven, the car was boxed in by trooper and city police vehicles. Trooper North is on trial for manslaughter. Soulemane had been sitting in the car with the windows up, Trooper North shot him 7 times, killing him. Frankly, I haven't had much time to look into this case other than to glimpse at the trial, which is being televised live. Trooper North did testify in his own defense, and I watched some of Connecticut Inspector General Devlin's cross-examination. Devlin is prosecuting the case. He asked North why he didn't try to communicate with Soulemane and de-escalate the situation. He asked the trooper if he had told anyone to turn off the sirens. He asked North if he had tried to use the police cruiser loudspeaker to talk to Soulemane. He established with North's agreement that every shot an officer fires could kill or injure, and then Devlin asked, "Did you reassess after firing the first shot?" North answered, "No." "Did you reassess after firing the second shot, the third shot, the fourth shot, the fifth shot, the sixth shot?" In each case, the answer was no. Now realize that the state trooper administration suspended North, but they kept him on at full pay now for over 4 years. There's no evidence they ever had a disciplinary hearing to try to fire him or punish him in any way, even if North didn't violate criminal law. Trooper administration could decide if North had violated their procedures, and if so, could have had him fired. But they did no such thing. That's our program for today. See you next week at this time. I'm Stanley Heller for the Struggle Video News.